you need me to send it again?
You have to make a really good point.
Okay, everyone.
Okay, we're ready.
Everybody,
Yeah.
action.
So I felt I had a few challenges in doing this presentation in that, one, the church I work at has 2 campuses. So we minister to 2 interrelated communities, Center City, Philadelphia, then mainline suburban communities, which is really hard because it's not defined municipally. It's hard to get demographics for everything. There are tons and tons of towns that are part of the main line related to Center City. It's more of a cultural region than it is municipalities and things like that. And then second, I don't live there. I currently live in South Jersey and commute. And then third, I started 5 weeks ago. So definitely new to this area. This is into the city. That's actually the bridge I take getting in there from South Jersey. A little bit of brief history is the city was founded by William Penn back in the late 17th century, who was a Quaker, and it was established to be kind of a beacon of religious liberty, a safe haven for Quakers fleeing persecution. So originally the whole goal is that this was a city of peace. It was at a time with the frontier developing, no walls around the city, which is strange and not very practical. Even made treaties with local Native American tribes. So it was really progressive for its time and known as a loving community. Hence its name means the city of brotherly love. And then later on, it served as the nation's capital. It's where the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were written, and that's the building they both were written in. It is no longer the nation's capital. So there is kind of a feeling in Philly, you kind of get this tension between where the beacons of religious liberty and freedom end. We're really important, but not anymore. That might be why their sports fans are so violent. Like, we have to fight and prove we're important, in a way. After the capital was moved to Washington, D.C., the city quickly deteriorated into ethnic violence as immigrants came in. They set up different gangs based on ethnicity, lots of inner violence, a lot of unrest and rioting during the civil rights movement. And in a lot of ways, Philly is kind of known for its violence, unrest, ethnic divides, and poverty these days, which is definitely different from its beginnings as the beacon of religious liberty. So there is a bit of a tension that you're going to meet either the nicest people in Philly or people that are absolutely terrifying, especially if you're wearing a jersey for a sports team that's not in Philly. Like, literally fear for your physical safety if you're not a Philadelphia team fan and you make that known in Philly. So Philly is kind of the cultural center for what's called the Delaware Valley. The colors don't really show up on there. But basically southern New Jersey, eastern PA, and northern Delaware. So it's a really big area that Philly has influence. It's kind of where you go if you want to do anything. It's where all the good music is. It's where the food is, the teams. So, and even a lot of the culture comes from Philly, the mindset. So it's a really influential region. And then this is an example. You see the city is here to the right, and outlined in pink, and then to the left is the main line. So it's a pretty big area. It's called the main line because it's all on the train line that leads into Center City, Philly, that a lot of people commute in to work on. And so demographics, so mind-blowing. In Philly, 41.8% are white, which is a lot lower than all of your numbers. The majority.
So you're better than us.
Now, if this included the main line. The main line is very white. So, this is just the city, predominantly African American by a couple percentage points. Have a few pictures of Center City, I'll just run through some of these. This is housing that looks a lot nicer than it actually is. This is probably a pretty poor community that's actually fairly run down since it was built a number of decades ago, probably on the south end of Philly. Lots of nice old historic buildings, kind of the history of that Revolutionary War era is everywhere. This is Reading Terminal Market. So when we watched the video on cosmopolitan canopies, the guy who did the observation for the books, this is where he did, in Philly. I've actually never been to the Reading Terminal Market. I stole that photo online, so I need to go. So for a city that's known for ethnic divides and tensions, it's interesting that the first person to notice these canopies noticed them in Philly. I'm sure that's the way that the Holy Spirit's working in a unique way. So this is down in Center City. This is near where the church is located. Eagles Stadium, because sports are really important, which is a connection I lose with others. It's also the music area, scene for the area. This is Theater of Living Arts, one of the big concert venues. Lots of smaller clubs like this. And then Verizon Hall at the Kimmel Center.
Club?
Yes, this is a small club. This is probably one of the smallest. Like, that's actually as far back as it goes. Like, that's probably taken from the back wall. For us, that's small. This is Verizon Hall, the Kimmel Center, where the Philadelphia Orchestra plays. So everything from indie bands up to classical music. This is Rittenhouse Square, which is another one of these cosmopolitan canopies. This is literally a 2-minute walk from the church I work at, our Center City location. And that's our building, historic First Baptist Church building in Philly. We're proud of God's blessing on us with that building a few years ago, so I had to sneak in a picture there. Now I'm going to transition briefly to the main line, which is what I'm more familiar with, as I went to school there, lived there for a few years. All kinds of places to hang out, coffee shops, little places to eat, lots of pubs, and which I frequented often. So all kinds of places to hang out, and it's interesting to notice, though, is that there's lots of community around individual tables, people really getting along, talking to each other. But as soon as you walk away from the table to interact with someone at the other table, well, they're probably going to be rude to you and not talk to you. There's not a lot of cross-pollination across these cliques. It looks like a middle school lunchroom in a lot of ways. I wish this picture was a little bigger. This is a typical house, actually a smaller house in the mainline area. Wayne, Pennsylvania is one of the communities on the mainline, which is one of the top 5 most expensive places to live in America. So like Beverly Hills status. And even though this house is for sale, that's typically what they all look like. They all look like model homes. You're never going to see a car out front. You're not going to see a basketball hoop, places to play. Everything's going to look pristine. If you look in the back left corner, you can just barely see that there's a garage separate from the house, which is where all the cars, toys, the things you would expect to see in a normal front yard are kind of kept and stored away. And typically there are larger porches on some of these houses, and always fences, hedges, gates. This is a little uncommon for this area. In a lot of ways, I think that people live like that everything has to look good on the front. You're welcome on my front porch if I let you cross my gate. But by the way, all the stuff that indicates I'm an actual human with real experiences is locked away in the back lawn. You're not allowed back there. It's definitely superficial relationships in a lot of ways. Some apartment buildings in the area, train station. And I think in a number of ways, I assumed originally that these people were all about material possessions, that they just wanted lots and lots of things. And I learned, eavesdropping on some conversations, people thought that their work was making the world around them a little bit better. That there was this sense of hopeless, meaningless to life, like life has no point, so I'm going to enjoy it and make it a little bit better when I'm done with it. Which is interesting. It's almost a hopeful hopefulness. Life has no point, therefore I'll try to make it a little bit better. Which is sad, but also is a really easy touching point for the gospel, that actually you can continue the hopeful part and get rid of the despair of the hopefulness. It's also a college town, so this is Rosemont College. This is our worshiping space for our mainline campus. Home of Villanova. Eastern University, had to sneak that in there. And then a couple comments on homelessness in Center City.
Which one is yours?
Huh?
What's the last one I did?
I don't remember which one was the last one you did. I wasn't. So anyway.
I'll do 2 though.
So I'm almost done. So the city of Philly has approximately 1,000 homeless men and women. That, of course, is a number in flux repeatedly. I think I've actually met this gentleman. I don't remember his name, but really common to see this on the streets. These little grates. Typically, a lot of heat comes up to keep warm during the winter. I remember being in first grade and seeing a picture of Philly and seeing one of these grates, and everyone knew that that was there for the homeless people to be warmed during the winter. Like in South Jersey, an hour away. Like everyone just knew that's where the homeless went and slept. A site like this is really common. I remember one of my first weeks doing homeless ministry in Philly, nearly tripping over a tarp in front of a building, and then the tarp moved and startled me and realized there was a person inside. That's where they had slept all night, in newspapers and a tarp on the front steps to a business building. I think that's probably the saddest thing I think I've ever seen. But it's also where God shows up, as there are a number of churches that make sure every single meal is covered for all the homeless in Philly. They all work together. So there's Liberty Church, which is an RCA church. We cover Saturday lunch. St. Mark's Catholic covers like every dinner of the week. Or no, that's Episcopal. And then St. John's Catholic also provides shower and some housing. So they're all working together to try to deal with the problem of homelessness in Philly. So sometimes I was thinking about doing these missiological practices about the Psalms of Lament, that especially the ones that are praying against some oppressor. And I wondered, and still don't know, how those prayers might inform the experience of the homeless in Philly, and how the prayers might seem to see how the homeless might look at the mainline community as well, the way they might relate. So one of the things it's interesting to see is that one of the guys who volunteers works in insurance. That some of these wealthier to-do people are coming on their Saturday to feed the homeless, to try to slowly bridge that gap. So that seems to be one of the spots where the Spirit is working in Philly and hopefully can continue to do so. So that's the end.